Howdy folks, welcome to the Daily Coin. My name is Rory and today is Tuesday, July the 31st, 2018, and I have a very special show for you guys today. I have a new guest and that is the founder and CEO of Pure Global Cannabis, Mr. Malay Panchal, who is affectionately known as Mel, so you'll hear me referring to him as both Mel and Malay. And you can find out all about Pure Global Cannabis at pureglobal.com. You can also find them listed on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the symbol PURE.v, as well as on the over-the-counter market under the symbol PRCNF. And we also have joining us today Mr. Kenneth Ameduri, who is the founder and CEO of Crush the Street. And you can find all of Kenneth's great work over at crushthestreet.com. And gentlemen, welcome to the Daily Coin.
Rory, thanks for having us on.
Thank you, Rory, and very, very much a pleasure having me on. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Well, I'm glad that you're both here because we are going to be getting into a subject that it's really exploding right now with the legalization of cannabis across Canada. It's the first country, I believe, to legalize cannabis as a nation, and with everything that's changing here in the United States, I'm really grateful to have this conversation. And Kenneth, I want to start with you, and I wanted to ask you about, we just printed a 4.1% GDP for the second quarter, and the economy, we're told over and over that it's doing great, but call me cynical. I'm not. What are your thoughts on the economy?
Yeah, you've heard of this term, the everything bubble, right,
Yes,
Rory?
exactly.
You talk about money printing all around the world. It's really difficult in this environment to find cheap stocks. I mean, you got to be super, super picky when it comes to the markets at the moment. And I don't know if you remember a couple months ago when Caterpillar announced that they believe that we might be going into a season of peak earnings and worried about future growth, and how that just shocked the markets. And we saw major downswings, and it was like a boy flying off the handlebars of his bicycle going downhill. And I think what it's telling us is that it's very, very difficult to find value in the market. And that's one of the things that we do here at Crush the Street. We look for trends and we look for opportunities to invest, especially in sectors that are undervalued. In 2017, we covered cryptocurrency very hard, and a lot of our investors made, hundreds, if not thousands of percent on cryptocurrencies or even some of the stocks that we covered. And now we're looking at cannabis, and this is a huge trend. I mean, we're going from a market that was largely illegal, a black market, into a legal market. And the implications of this is huge. And because the economy is so sensitive right now, you got to be looking in sectors that are undervalued, where the opportunity is early. And that's why I'm really glad we're having this conversation today. I think it's very timely, and it's time to strike while the iron is hot.
Couldn't agree more. And speaking of which, Mel, I want to give you a formal introduction, and his name is actually Malay Panchal, and he is the founder and CEO. He's a board member also of Pure Global, and he's a seasoned serial entrepreneur, 20 plus years experience in pharma, business-to-business technology, retail, mail-order pharmacy, pharma, branding, and clinical trials. And Mel, what is, with the legalization of cannabis, like I was saying, all across Canada, and we're starting to see more jobs for local economies, we're seeing less crime, better health. Are there any downsides to legalized, regulated cannabis?
Very good question, Rory, and really difficult to answer given all the positive attributes of legalization that it brings. The downsides, on the most part, that I would identify would be that the legalized environment would perhaps not have enough product for the demand, especially at the onset, given the high demand that's anticipated, and not enough quality product and not enough variety of product that's currently available on the in the black markets. So the downside potentially of legalization could be that the legal retail outlets wouldn't have enough product on their shelves, and then the consumer is somewhat turned off, and they end up going to the black market anyways for these products. And I've said that at the onset, October 17th, Canada goes legalization for adult legal use. And the anticipation is that there is not going to be enough product, and it's going to be somewhat of a heyday for the quote unquote gray market to meet any demand that's not being fulfilled by the regulated model. That to me is the greatest downside. Obviously, any new environment, there's a bit of a growing pain process that you go through, getting some of the kinks out of the system, but that's all part of it. Outside of that, the downside, maybe some interruption of certain industries. We're seeing a reduced consumption of alcohol, which you could argue is probably a positive thing. Also, pharmaceutical sales going down, which arguably could be a positive thing as well. But on the most part, the tax benefits, the fact that this is a relatively benign product that consumers can benefit, a low toxicity profile and safety profile, on the most part, the benefits hugely outweigh any downside.
You mentioned that there could be a lack of variety of cannabises available to the end user or the consumer. Are there real significant differences from one plant to another, or variety of, I guess, cannabinoids from one plant to another? I mean, what distinctions are there, if any, that would benefit me as a patient or a consumer of cannabis? I mean, what am I? Is one plant going to be better for me than others, or how does that work?
Absolutely, Rory. Great question, and these are the kind of questions that we're very much excited about unraveling the mysteries behind. Cannabis has been illegal to study on the most part, especially in the U.S., being
Right.
Classified as a Schedule I drug, and the most part, any studies that were done in the past were primarily looking for the harmful effects. And there is what we know today is there are about 108 cannabinoids that have been identified in cannabis, and at least 30 to 40 terpenes, all of which have what we call an entourage effect, in terms of having a combination of the different levels of these different constituents that result in different physiological responses to the body. And when it comes especially to medical use, we're looking to treat a variety of disease states, including, for example, post-traumatic stress, anxiety, depression, sleep. Of course, chronic pain is the major use of medical cannabis today. But today we have little understanding on which combinations of these cannabinoids work the best for the end user, and that's an area we're very excited about unraveling. And the variety that I spoke to earlier, Rory, was more towards the type of products that currently is going to be allowed under the current legislation. And at the onset, the government is allowing legal sale of dried flower, as well as some oil-based products, as in terms of cannabis dispensed in a oil dispensing bottle, as well as capsule formation. But some of the other products that are available in the market, especially in the gray area, include some sorts of foods and beverages, vaporization pens, for example. There's shatter and butter and a variety of different formats that won't be allowed in the current legislation. However, there will be some place for them about a year down the road. So in that year is going to be an opportunity, unfortunately, for the gray market to fulfill the needs of the consumer because that variety won't be there. And that, again, I see as a bit of a downside at the onset of legalization.
Well, I hope that the gray market and the black market gets cleaned up, because I think that would help both Canada and the U.S. as far as all of the crime. Well, I know that it would, and legalization would change the whole crime landscape. I think that we're seeing very positive numbers in Colorado and Washington State, where both of those states you have recreational as well as medicinal marijuana, and I think that the impact on crime in both of those states is really beginning to show what it means. You know, that once you take and decriminalize something that shouldn't be criminalized in the first place, that all of a sudden law enforcement can actually focus on actual crimes. Kenneth, I wanted to ask you about legalizing. I mean, since we're on that topic, I mean, what do you make of cannabis becoming legalized? I mean, and how big a deal do you anticipate this to be?
Well, it's definitely a huge thing for perception. Cannabis has, been in the same category as heroin and cocaine for all these years.
Yes.
And this is rapidly changing. And, one of the things that I think is going to be very interesting is governments are going to get very addicted to the tax revenue that is coming about because of cannabis. I mean, just a local story. I'm from California, and, you have the city, Desert Hot Springs, which was bankrupt not that many years ago. And, now it's become a thriving area for cannabis and dispensaries. Acres of land back then, sold for $50,000. And now they're selling for $800,000, $900,000 an acre now because of all of the business that's being done in these areas. And there's a surplus in the city now. And, now that you have that, I mean, you've mentioned Washington, Colorado, Canada as a country, Nevada, and some of these other areas that are legalizing it. Once this is legalized, there's no going back. And we're really at the tipping point for there just to be, a floodgate of momentum creating momentum. And, it all is going to, create synergy with one another. And that's what I'm seeing here. You have this illegal sector going legal. The UN estimates that, around the world, this is $150 billion industry. And you have $150 billion essentially on the sidelines that is going legal and going from the black market to the legal market, being built out as we speak. And there's just a lot of infrastructure that needs to be built out. And that's why, knowing and partnering with someone like Malay is so strategic in this time because, he's out in front of the trend and he's, striking while the iron is hot. And we have the opportunity to partner in an early stage company and really participate in this trend. And that's what's really exciting about this. And what's interesting is, after Prohibition, talking about alcohol, there was no real Anheuser-Busch as like this dividend aristocrat safe haven stock. But now, you look at Heineken, you look at Anheuser-Busch, you look at, Diego, these alcohol companies. These are, great companies to own because of what they do. That doesn't even exist yet, really, in the cannabis market. And I think we're going to have those kind of companies. Our kids are going to buy cannabis stocks as solid companies to own for 100 years that are going to grow their dividends. And that just goes to show how early we are in this trend. And I really believe in the opportunities that there are to come. And that's why I'm so excited and I'm so passionate about this. I can tell you last week I was speaking with a state legislator in Washington, the state of Washington. His name is Roger Goodman, and he's been involved with the talks, educating people and legislation for years to get cannabis legalized. And he even said it. His words out of his mouth was, "We are past the tipping point for all the concerns that are out there. We are now past the tipping point, and there is no going back." So I think momentum is going to continue to build momentum in this space, and I think people who are wanting to, be a part of the trend and say, "Hey, I was actually able to make money in cannabis in the early days," have that opportunity today.
Yes, and I agree. And I'm going to take some of what you just said, and I'm going to throw it over to Mel. And it's Malay Panchal. He's the CEO and founder, Pure Global, and you can find him on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the symbol PURE.v. That's PURE.v. Over the counter market under the symbol PRCNF. And Mel, Kenneth mentioned that the United Nations had stated that the illegal black market globally was 150 billion. I mean, do you have any, or have you guys looked at that number and kind of projected what the medical aspect would add to it, or maybe even a complement once the stigma of the legalization is removed? What is that number going to actually look like? Because personally, I'm sitting here thinking, well, that's probably going to be 300 billion, if not even bigger, because of the medical aspect and the removal of the stigma of it being illegal. I mean, or am I completely out of line here?
I think you're right on the money, Rory.
Okay.
And when you consider the medical applications and the pharmaceutical applications
that we don't even know exist yet, we don't know what all they are, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So once we get the evidence behind the medical products that are coming down the pipeline and exact hard clinical data on how it affects certain medical conditions, what you're going to see is insurance companies beginning to cover the costs for medical cannabis and getting it listed on the government formularies and so forth. So when you just talk about the pharmaceutical side, which we believe is going to soon eclipse even the recreational or adult use side, the number is well above 200 billion from our perspective, and we're only a fraction of that at the onset. And indeed, this is just the tip of the iceberg, if you will. Canada is the first G7 country that has legalized cannabis for adult use come October 17th, but the medical side has been legal for a number of years, and the country is expanding on this. And right now, Canada really is the only country that can export medical grade cannabis products to the growing number of countries, which number about 30 already.
Wow.
And Canada is a relatively small market, about 35 million people. And with the number of companies that are already in the sector, mostly focused again on the adult recreation or adult legal use market. Our perspective is Canada is really a pilot market for us, where we will develop our R&D, our product line of products that we want to have, and what Pure Global wants to be is sort of a one-stop shop for the future channel partners that we're going to have around the world that want reliable, trusted cannabis products that are made on a good manufacturing practice scale that can be relied upon for consistency again and again. And that's going to represent an opportunity that's vastly greater than what's available in the Canadian markets. And that's the opportunity, especially for a company like ours, for investors to come aboard on while we're still basically on the runway, if you will, or just if you like the analogy of a ship being just sailed. We've just been cast, and we're about to cast our sails and catch up to the rest of our peers, which represents a great opportunity for investors to capture the growth ahead for our company.
Yeah, I think that your sails are going to be full of wind here before too long, and you're going to be cruising at top speed. And right now, Mel, there are 32 licensed medical grade businesses in Canada with a median market cap of about 800 million. And your company, Pure Global Cannabis, started trading on July the 11th, and the market cap is 60 million, and a major discount, or if we flip the story, a major growth opportunity. I mean, and what are your plans at this point? You mentioned export. I mean, are you guys going to attack the export market, or how does what is your business plan to fill those sales at this point?
Great question, Rory. So our company has identified a number of sales channels that are available to us, and we're really a vertically integrated company, and we have a rare opportunity in this industry to be a fully vertically integrated company, meaning we're producing the product, we can wholesale the product, and we can also retail the product either through our e-commerce channels or our future brick and mortar retail outlets, which we hope to have in place one day. So we will start by dispensing medical cannabis to patients in Canada, which represents the highest margin opportunity for us. And the company has a relationship with probably the largest medical group in Canada with about 7 million patients in their database, which we're looking to develop an electronic e-prescribing platform where prescriptions will enter our system directly. And this will result in a huge bastion of opportunity for us to increase our patient count quite quickly. Beyond that, we look to quickly start formulating commercialized products that'll be ready for the future pharmacy shelves, which are just beginning to get legislated to start dispensing cannabis products. And we see within a couple of years that pharmacies will play a major role in dispensing medical cannabis products to patients. But beyond that, we are aggressively pursuing the various countries around the world that are looking for clean Canadian cannabis products. Some of them just include Germany, for example. South America represents a huge opportunity. Australia has tremendous opportunity, and so forth. So we're currently looking at various countries around the world where we're looking to expand our footprint and our capability to distribute it into those local markets, and truly becoming a global cannabis player in short order.
How do we keep companies like Monsanto and BASF, how do we keep them out of this market and keeping the products pure to where the cannabinoids are not, genetically modified, become engineered in a way that may not be beneficial to us, because what is in the plant already is what we're looking for? I mean, and how do we, or can we, keep these people out, these corporations out of this market?
Well, Rory, to be honest, it's going to be very difficult for the larger pharma players, alcohol players, and some of the companies you've mentioned, who see tremendous opportunity in this product being a tremendous agriculture product, pharmaceutical product, and adult legalized recreational or wellness product. Eventually, they will try to muscle their way in, but I think the way you prevent it is and if that is your ethical value system, is getting behind companies like ours that are truly behind preserving the essence of this ancient medicine. And we're not an outfit that is looking to flip, if you will, our venture like many of our predecessors may have in their business plan work. So I'm a pharmacist by profession. And what I want to bring to this industry is a company that consumers can truly grow to trust and rely upon for untainted and as natural as possible the product as we can get. And we're here for the long run. I hope to be passing shares off to my children and grandchildren, and we want to be a global trusted go-to source for channel partners, for retail partners, for pharmacies and consumers alike, for introducing this ancient medicine in a safe way that consumers can rely upon.
So really, if I excuse me, if I heard you correctly, what you're saying is that by supporting company like Pure Global, that you're really one of the defenses against these people, because I can tell you right now, my audience, they are not fans of either of those companies or what they bring to the table, and we are mostly, what I hear from consumers all the time is that I'm sick of these chemicals. I'm sick of everything being, I don't even know what's in the food anymore. And now all of a sudden, if it starts getting into the medications, then we have a serious problem, because it's just a completely lost cause. So if you're out there, if you are concerned about your health and the longevity of our communities and your family and your friends, then consider Pure Global. And they are trading currently on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the symbol PURE.v. That's the only way that we can stop them. And Kenneth, I want to get your thoughts on cannabis. I mean, you are of an age that you're a millennial, and how has your opinion towards cannabis evolved? I mean, and have you always thought of cannabis as being something that is not good, or have you always thought of it as being somewhat okay? If I can have a beer, then I should be able to, smoke weed? Or what are your thoughts on that aspect of it?
Well, it's come a long way, because I grew up in an age where cannabis, again, was in the illegal category. It was closer to cocaine and heroin than it was to alcohol and cigarettes. But I'm learning that it's even healthier and more beneficial to our bodies than alcohol and cigarettes. And it's just such a mind-blowing thing. And I've been able to learn about the health benefits. I'm learning about it helping people with cancer, helping people with, headaches or epilepsy or their sleeping problems. And it's just blowing me away about how positive it is in so many ways. Talk about the economy, how good it is for jobs. And, and what's exciting is that it's not really a bipartisan thing anymore. It's not, speaking of, the Republican and Democrats here in the U.S., it's becoming something that is embraced by all sides, especially as a millennial. I know some of the older generations are holding on to the more traditional beliefs, especially on the conservative side. But as a millennial, I can tell you it's becoming a very common thing to talk about. And there isn't this stigma around cannabis the way there was even 5 years ago. And I can tell you, maybe Malay can attest to this. My uncle, would give me these anecdotal stories. He'd say, what, I was a pharmacist here at the hospital outside of LA here, and at the Kaiser outside of, near Hollywood. And, every day he'd see people come in with alcohol poisoning, drunks and people on the hospital beds puking their guts out. But never, people are not showing up in hospitals because of cannabis, because of overdosing. And you scratch your head about this. People are not dying because of cannabis. In fact, it's helping people to such a large degree. And you can only imagine, if 5 years ago, alcohol was illegal for all these years, and 5 years ago, just like cannabis, it started to become legal in a state like Colorado or Washington. All of the horror stories that could be written by the newspapers, spousal abuse, drunk drivings, accidents, liver poisoning, alcohol poisoning, all of these different things that are happening because of alcohol. Imagine all the stories that could be written. And it's like, oh, we should have never legalized this. We're not going to see that with cannabis. In fact, we've already had evidence of this in states like Washington and Colorado, where it's been legal for many years, a few years now, and we're not seeing the same sort of consequences that we have with alcohol, and then cigarettes are known to kill people. So I think it's just a brand new paradigm. I think a new generation is going to come around, and again, momentum is creating momentum. And it's going to be conventional wisdom that cannabis it's an ally for humans, especially on the health benefits. Once we start to largely legalize it, we can study it, and we can with certainty, with the government stamp of approval, say, hey, this is actually good for certain ailments and good for certain things, and replacing things in the medical industry that were otherwise done with traditional medicine. So I'm very excited about that. I believe, like myself, many other millennials have come around to it, and momentum. I'll say it again: momentum is creating momentum.
Yes, and as a conservative baby boomer, I'm going to have to say that some of us actually have wanted to see marijuana legalized, decriminalized for decades, and have never seen cannabis, marijuana as being any sort of an issue whatsoever. And now that we have evidence to say that there are huge medical benefits to it, then life is good. It's all the better, and I love it. And Mel, I mean, if you would, what do you think? I mean, how have you seen the same question? How have you seen the evolution of cannabis through your life? I mean, as a pharmacist and being able to help people now that everything is changing. What were your thoughts before, and how has that evolved and changed?
Great question, Rory. And just to add to Kenneth's point about the non-toxic profile of cannabis and medical cannabis, indeed, the sky is not falling in Colorado and Washington and 30 states, plus the District of Columbia, that have legalized or have cannabis regulations in place. And in fact, they've seen tremendous benefits, both on the tax revenue side, as well as patient safety or public safety profile, reduction in alcohol use, reduction in cigarette use, reduction in even pharmaceuticals. We obviously have an opioid crisis in North America and around the world, and cannabis represents a tremendous opportunity to provide an alternative natural solution that could curb a lot of that unnecessary loss of life and suffering. And as a pharmacist, what I've seen over the years, firstly being a Gen Xer myself, I didn't think that I would see it in my lifetime that cannabis would be legalized. Growing up in the era of the war on drugs and the commercials with the frying pan with the egg in it, and
Yep.
Times have changed, and
Yes.
when I compare cannabis to the pharmaceutical drugs that are dispensed in a pharmacy, I mean, you hear those commercials with a long list of side effects, including
Exactly.
sometimes death that can come from taking a product that's supposed to help you. Cannabis represents a tremendous opportunity to curb the use of non-effective pharmaceuticals that often lead patients down the wrong path. And I'm referring primarily to opioids, but also for those that are suffering from alcohol abuse and cigarette addiction as well, all causing hundreds of thousands of deaths a year in North America, where again, we don't see a single death related to cannabis, direct cannabis use. And so there's a societal change that is coming and ensuing. And just like when alcohol prohibition ended in the 1930s, and then all the changes that came, about in terms of bars so we're going to see a shift societally as well when cannabis is introduced to the public and is being introduced. We've already seen it pass a tipping point in the U.S. with over 30 states, and this is going to, as you said, the tipping point is on, and this is going to continue moving forward. And the opportunity is tremendous, especially for Canadian companies like ours, looking forward to being on really at the forefront and being pioneers in this sector, and having the opportunity to create an enterprise that's going to be sustainable and differentiated from the peers.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think that everything is changing, and it's all moving in a direction that is waking a lot of people up. I think that this issue, if you combine it with the political atmosphere that's happening around the world, that it's fueling a fire that hasn't been a part of humanity for a number of decades. And I think that what's happening with the cannabis industry, I mean, we had cryptocurrencies over the past couple of years that really kind of opened people's eyes to finance and money and currency. And now we have cannabis coming in on the heels of that. And we had, Brexit and Trump and everything, and Giuseppe that was elected in Italy, and all of these things that are shaking the very foundation of what all three of us grew up with. I mean, we've got a millennial, we've got a Gen Xer, and a baby boomer. I mean, all of us have been affected by the way that things have been, and now it seems that everything is really being blown apart at this point, and we're starting to see something completely different. And I love it. I absolutely love it, because it means more power back in our hands where it belongs, where I can make decisions that impact my life and my family, instead of having someone else dictate to me what that means. And Mel, if you would share some of your thoughts with us, and as far as what investors can expect going forward in the cannabis space and how it pertains to your business.
Sure, Rory. So going forward, the sector again is just burgeoning. It's very nascent and really the tip of the iceberg. Things have just begun, and Canada is setting a standard and developing a model that will hopefully be replicated in countries around the world. And so Canadian companies such as ours have the opportunity to be at the forefront of this massive wave that you see very few products that circumvent pharmaceutical, nutraceutical, wellness, and recreational, and so again, hundreds of billions of dollars of opportunity globally speaking over the next number of years, and we're really starting at zero, and that is really analogous to our company. We just listed on July the 11th, and we could have chosen to list publicly a little bit later, when we were more advanced perhaps, but we felt there's a tremendous opportunity for investors to participate in our growth story, and getting an opportunity to make some real lasting positive growth in shareholder value. And again, we're really on the ground floor. We're pre-revenue still. We have yet to make a slew of acquisitions, announcements, and hires going forward. And as all those come to fruition, the company will obviously see that being reflected in our share value. And so this represents an opportune time for those that are interested in not only participating in this tremendous sector that is just burgeoning, but also to get in with a company that is not quite at 50,000 feet already, like some of the others, like the Canopies and Auroras or Tilrays, where the growth potential there is only so much. Where we're really at ground level, and you get to participate in all the growth that's coming down the road for us.
I really like what you guys are putting together too, and I really love the fact that you see yourself as being a defender of the industry and of the medical properties that the plants bring to the table. That means a lot to me. And Kenneth, would you mind sharing some of your thoughts as we wrap this thing up?
First of all, Rory, thanks for having us on the show. I mean, what a pleasure it is to be able to do this and speak with Malay himself and, in companies that we're going to partner with. I mean, to have access to the founders, the CEO, and to be on this, ground floor opportunity here, to be on top of this. I mean, this is so exciting. I'm really excited about this. I feel like it's early. We're a U.S. company here, and I can tell you, it wasn't even, it was about a year ago, we took a marketing fee to do some marketing for a cannabis company, and our bank was actually shut down. We actually had our bank account shut down because, it's not a federally legal thing, even though, California, it's now legal, Washington, Colorado, DC. And it goes to show how early we are. The infrastructure is being laid right now as we speak. And we're going to look back at this time of prohibition and the shift from illegal to legal, in amazement years down the road when, we have, many multi-billion-dollar companies and cannabis companies paying large dividends and, a part of the New York Stock Exchange and major stock exchanges around the world, as multi-billion-dollar companies. I mean, this is the beginning stages, and it's really an awesome time to be a part of it, especially in a period where we're in this everything bubble, all this money printing and, low interest rates and this volatile environment. It's exciting to be on the ground floor of a very hot trend. And so, if anyone wants more information, you can actually check out Pure Global at crushthestreet.com/pure if you want some more information on that, some of the information that we've put together on it. But Malay, thanks for coming on the show. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. And Rory, thanks for having us on.
Well, I'm glad to do it. I'm really grateful for both of you being here. And Malay, it's been a real pleasure speaking with you and getting some insights from someone of your stature and what you're trying to do and not trying to do, what you're putting together. I think it's really incredible. And folks, please go to crushthestreet.com/pure, because I know that Kenneth has put together a great report for you all. And if you want to check out the stock, it's on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the symbol PURE.v. Gentlemen, thank you so much for all your time today, and I look forward to speaking with you both in the near future.
Thank you, Rory and Kenneth, for having me. It was a tremendous pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks, fellas.